Misconceptions of weightlifting, exercising, and everything in the realm of fitness. Now, check out my other video for beginner dumbbell exercises if you're new to lifting. It'll help you out. So let's get right into it. First thing is spot reduce body fat percentage, or in body fat. You cannot spot reduce body fat. You can target your muscle, however, and grow your muscle out and reduce your body fat in general proportionally, but you can't like spot reduce body fat by your gut or your legs or anything like that. It's just not possible. People are proportionally different. They store body fat differently than other people, but when you lose it, you'll lose it proportionally to your body, and you may have areas you want to get rid of, and you just have to lean out. That is just the reality of everything. You have to lean out to get all the parts of your body, the fat you want to lose, and that is in a caloric deficit. And to lose weight, you have to be in a caloric deficit, eating the right things, caloric deficit, training to keep your muscle on, training with intensity. So keep that in mind. You can grow, you can spot reduce. You cannot spot reduce body fat. That's the biggest misconception, but you can grow your muscles. You can spot grow your muscles. So the next thing is, which I don't know why people, a lot of adults and older people say this, that lifting weights actually stunts your growth. That is not true. It's actually more beneficial for you to do it as long as you're not getting injured and you're stunting it in that way, like you're being injured all the time and you're doing it right, you're sleeping, you're eating. You're not going to stunt your growth in any way. So you should look at it as a positive thing. Getting moving, cardio, lifting, getting stronger. As a kid, you're not going to stunt your growth. It's a big misconception. So it's actually really good for you. The next thing is easy to put on size. Now I'm talking about women, because a lot of women say this is, well, I'm going to get in the gym and I'm going to get too bulky. It's going to be way harder than you think to actually put on size, especially in general. And as being a woman, you're not like a man where you can put on size a lot faster than a woman can. Being in a calorie surplus as a woman, it's going to help, obviously, but people say, or women say, being in the gym and everything is going to make them way too bulky. That is just not the truth. If you're like 30% body fat, though, yeah, you're going to be bulky. You want to have to lean out, and as long as you're training properly, eating and sleeping, you're going to grow and grow. And being in a calorie surplus, you're going to grow muscle, a little bit of fat, and cut that down. You're not going to get bulky. When women usually talk about being bulky, they talk about having an unnecessary amount of body fat on them when they go into a bulk and they're putting on size. As a woman, they see this as this term as being bulky, which it is. You have muscle and you have body fat on you, but you have that look that they call is because you have body fat on you and maybe not as much as you want. So you have to cut down to actually go and see your muscle. If you're in the gym and you're a woman, don't be discouraged. Go to the gym, put some size on you, and then cut down or just lean out, and you're not going to have that bulky look that you think you're going to have. And it's going to be harder to put on muscle than you think. All right, next thing is eating in a surplus and calling it a bulk, and eating like 10,000 calories and calling that a bulk. That is not a bulk. That is just eating way over your maintenance. That's a crazy surplus. And I'm just exaggerating that with 10,000 calories. I mean like 1,000 calories over your surplus, or 800. That is way too much. You've gone too much fat way too quickly. You are maximizing your muscle growth, but you're not maximizing your ratio between muscle and fat. You're going to have putting on this much fat, putting on this much muscle. So you want to minimize your fat gain, but maximize your muscle gain. And to do that is to be in a caloric surplus of maybe 200 to 300. And that can get you right and within minimizing your fat gain and maximizing your muscle gain. But obviously play around with your weight. You should be gaining around 0.75 to a pound per week during your bulk, so you do not gain unnecessary amounts of fat. You don't want to be gaining like 1.5 or 2 pounds a week, anything like that, because you have to go and then cut down, and you have all this fat onto you, which you don't want to do. It's going to take 10 times longer, and the ratio between fat and muscle is just not worth it. So it's a big misconception, eating crazy over your surplus or eating whatever you want and not tracking. It's a big misconception. Track, be in a surplus, and bulk correctly, clean bulk, don't dirty bulk. It's all about the ratio between foods, like how dirty versus how clean. If it's 90% clean and 10% dirty, then you can get away with it. That's just how a diet's supposed to be within your macro range. Don't say no to going out if you're bulking. Like, go out, eat, come home, get your macros right, and you'll be good. Just don't worry about it in that terms. But if you're eating like 10 donut boxes a day, like, that's a problem. Next misconception, which I had today happen to me, and a couple other days. People say this all the time. I'll be eating while I'm cutting, and people know that you're cutting, so you're eating, and they're like, "Oh, how's it going?" Blah blah blah, and you're eating, and it looks like you're eating a lot, but you're actually not. It's like a lower calorie version, and you're just eating within your macros and within your calorie range. And they're like, "Well, I thought you were eating, I thought you're cutting. Why are you eating so much?" And it's not that I'm eating so much. I'm eating like like less calorically dense things that fit my macros within my range. So technically, I'm not eating as much, or I could be eating more technically, but it's less calorically dense, so I can eat those things and still hit my goals. Which some people and people who don't lift, people who don't track, don't understand that about when cutting and dieting versus bulking and things of that nature. Like you can substitute those things for lower calorie versions where you're eating quote more, but you're actually eating less. The biggest misconception is cutting is not starving yourself. Cutting is just eating below your maintenance and losing body fat. It's not that you're not. It's not that you're starving yourself. People may see it as that or something. A lot of wrestlers see it as that, as starving themselves because they have to drop water weight. So see it for what it is and just try to explain it to people. But that is a big misconception amongst the community and people looking on the outside and looking in. Next thing is water weight when starting a cut. So when someone starts a cut and they're either relatively new to fitness or they're just somebody who's just trying to lose weight in general, and they're not actually specifically training for strength or training for muscle mass and keeping their muscle mass, the first like 10 to 12, or say they are 10 to 12 pounds, maybe even 5 or 6, depending on how big the individual is, you're going to lose like 8 to 10 pounds of just water weight because you're dropping your carbs and being in a caloric deficit. You're not having as much food in your stomach, so you're dropping that weight as well of not just having the food in your stomach and your body. So that initial weight is actually not fat, it's water weight. And it can be discouraging to look at it that way, and it could be encouraging to look at it, oh, I'm dropping all this weight, and you feel better because you don't have a bloated gut and everything, which is good. That's how you want to look at it. But realize that that is water weight, and once you hit the plateau of where it's water weight and fat and you're just burning fat at this point, you have to look at it. You have to look at it, and don't be discouraged from the scale slowly ticking down, because you have to look at it like that is the fat going down. Now once you got through the water weight, you're slowly ticking down the fat, and you can actually see it going down. So if you think you plateaued, you didn't, give it a week and see and watch the scale and see if it goes down. Maybe a week, maybe a week and a half, and then adjust your goals. But the biggest misconception here is people thinking the 8 to 10 pounds is actually fat when it's actually just water weight in general. Next misconception is training intensity versus volume. So people on this camp with low sets, low volume, high intensity, and then there's this other camp saying high volume, high intensity, and high sets and everything. So what I see is it as I'm on the low side, so low volume, quote low volume, high intensity to the max intensity. So I see it as people, if you're doing all these sets, all this volume, and you're giving it you're not stimulating as much growth as you could if you spread it throughout your week, hitting the each muscle group 2 times a week, around 10 to 12 sets max, and you're hitting each muscle group and you're stimulating the right muscles, being more fresher than if you did like 20 sets of workout and you're only hitting it once per week. It's going to be less stimulating in that workout, because you're going to be on your 20th set, on your 15th set, and it's not going to be as effective as your first 10. I'm on that camp, but it does work if you have high volume. High volume can work for some individuals, and I've seen it happen. So if you are on that side and you find results with that, then stick with that. But give low volume, high intensity a try. But the biggest misconception here is arguing between these two. Whatever works for you, as long as you are intense and pushing yourself, you're recovering. It's all about what you can recover from the end of the day. If you can do all that volume and you fit it in the time you want and you have time for it, then I don't see a reason why you can't spend all that time and actually growing if you can actually bring the intensity. But as your workout goes on and as you add more volume, you're going to be less stimulating to the muscles. That's just science at that point. But if it works for you, go ahead and do it, because some people's bodies respond differently than others. Next biggest misconception is cardio before lifting. Now you can do it, but if you do it like, if you get to the gym and you're like, I'm gonna do some cardio, you go, you do some cardio before lifting, you do like an hour, and then you go to lift, you're diminishing your strength, you're diminishing the hypertrophy effect because you're adding a cardiovascular before strength training, before hypertrophy work, growing your muscles, and it's just going to be less stimulating because you're already kind of tired from the cardio. Now, if you do cardio before working out, do it several hours before. I would say like max like three, not because if it's intense, you don't want to be like 3 hours because then you wouldn't want to go and strength train and hypertrophy train. So I would give it like 6 hours between, or like just several hours between, and whatever works for you is what is important. How many hours you can recover from, and then how many hours you can recover from the cardio to your strength slash hypertrophy work. Biggest misconception here is cardio right before. If you're going to do cardio during your weightlifting routine, do it directly after and do it on low intensity, so you should be able to hold a conversation while you're doing the cardio. You should not be huffing and puffing. And if you're going to have that kind of cardio where you want to run and actually exert your cardiovascular system and bring it and stretch out your stamina, you want to do it several hours apart. So it should be several hours apart or directly after strength training, or hours apart from your strength training the other way. Next biggest misconception is fasting burns fat. Now, it does, and it depends how you look at it, how you're looking at it, and the perspective you have, context you're talking about. If you're going to fast for 30 days, you're definitely going to lose some fat, but you're going to lose your muscle too. So I'm talking in the context of bodybuilding, keeping your muscle and losing your fat. So within that context, if you're fasting and you're up in the morning and you have your water, or you're not drinking water at all, or if you just say it's just water and you're fasting for a whole day, you're not activating protein synthesis. So therefore your body and your muscles, it's going to start eating your muscle and fat. Obviously it's going to go to your fat, your carbs, then it's fats, then it's muscle. But if you're not providing protein synthesis and you're not going to the gym and recruiting muscle fibers, recruiting new motor units, then you're not going to be keeping your muscle. It's going to be like fading away because you're not feeding your body fuel to even work out in the first place. So you're going to end up losing muscle and body fat at the same time. So you don't want to do that at all. You want to try to fuel your workout, lose the fat by doing your cardio, being at a calorie deficit, doing it that way rather than fasting. Now, if you're in the morning and I would recommend eating a little bit of protein, like have like 15 grams of protein of like egg whites, and then just drink that, and then you can extend a couple hours, and then you can actually have your first meal. If there's a problem with you spacing out your meals, you can do that, because what you want to do is have protein synthesis activate in the morning, drink your water, get your metabolism going, and then you can space out your meals, because all the time you're sleeping, you have 8 or 9 hours where you're not ingesting water, you're not ingesting protein, any macros, any calories at all. You're expending all of them when you're actually sleeping and recovering. This misconception is fasting. You have to look at it in a different light and use it to your advantage with spacing out your meals and things of that nature. But fasting without going to the gym, without recruiting protein synthesis, it's just not good overall for muscle growth and strength gains. So you have to look at it in a different light than just seeing it as, oh, I'm fasting, and the typical, oh, I'm fasting and I'm losing all this fat, blah, blah, blah. You're just going to be losing water weight, and you want to actually do it the right way. But whatever works for you, works for you. So keep that in mind, how your body responds. But a general rule is what I just said. So fasting does not burn fat. It's the caloric deficit that you are in that is going to be burning the fat and losing your fat and peel it off your body. And with that, people say training fasted versus not training fasted. You want to figure out what works for you. Try it fasted, try it not fasted, try it with carbs before, try it with some fat, some carbs, some protein, and see how you feel. If whatever you do the best in, you should do it. Training intensity versus volume, right? Now, people say, they're in two camps here with low volume, high intensity, and then there's high volume, high intensity, or three camps here: high intensity, high volume, and then there's low intensity, high volume. So I'm going to say here, what works for me is low intensity, or not low intensity, high intensity and low volume. I was about to say high, don't know why, but high volume, high intensity. It's all about, with volume here, I'm going to talk about biggest misconception here is it's about what works for you and what you can fit into your life and what you see results doing. So effectively, you want to pick what works for you. Try each different side, try low volume, try high intensity, try low intensity, high volume, try high intensity, high volume. It's whatever works for you, what you see results in. But generally, science says low volume, high intensity, but the intensity has to be there. You can't be lagging on that. It has to be there. So that's what science says. They're kind of pushing towards that. That's what people say generally. That's what people are doing. In a cutting context, you want to be low sets, high intensity. In a bulking context, you could do a little bit more volume, obviously high intensity. So choose and pick there. But training intensity versus volume here, that's what I'm talking about. The biggest misconception is that people take it and they're like, oh, what should I do? More volume, or what should I do? High intensity. Well, it's kind of like a mix of both, a mix of what works for you. I would not lean towards the low intensity, high volume side because it's very fatiguing and it's just not really what science is with. But you can make growth, and I'm not saying you can't, but whatever works for you, whatever you enjoy at the end of the day is what it's about. If you're going to maximize gains, it's leaning towards the low volume, high intensity. Next thing is cardio before lifting, right? So you want to have your cardio spaced out, either 6 hours ish, whatever kind of works for you there. But general rule is you don't want to do cardio right before you weightlift because you're going to have decreased strength, you're going to be more fatigued, and it's going to be harder for you to get through focusing, mind muscle connection. Whatever works for you, but you want to take in mind if you're trying to get gains, hypertrophy, strength, you're going to want to space out your cardio either directly after you work out, several hours after you work out, or just directly after you work out. Low intensity cardio, just getting your heart rate up to 30 minutes. It should not be longer than your workout. Burning your fat, burning calories, and generally just keeping it spaced out. If you're going to do running, keep it spaced out so you can have maximum strength, maximum hypertrophy gains during the time you are working out or directly after you work out. Going back to volume, do what works for you, find what you like, and if you're doing something and you hate it, like you're doing a lot of volume and you hate it, try low volume. If you're doing low volume and you hate it, try high volume. See what you like, because what you ultimately like is what you're going to exceed in, is what you're going to get results in, because that's what you like. If you're not seeing results, then it might be the unfortunate truth that you might be doing something wrong and you need to switch something up. Last thing is saying full range of motion is bad. That is a big misconception. People say you can get injured. It's not good for you. It's not good for recovery. And just form in general, when people talk about full range of motion, people saying it's bad for you. It's not going to get you injured as long as you're doing full range of motion and you build up to it. If you were not doing full range of motion before, you're actually going to get stronger and you're going to actually promote more hypertrophy and strength gains because you're getting the most out of you can of the muscle. You're getting the most out of it. You're stretching it. You're putting it in a stretch position, and you're contracting it within a full range of motion. You're isolating the muscle. You're actually using it. You're pausing. You're exploding. You're actually doing things right. It's not bad for you. It's going to be more beneficial to you. And just because you're not ego lifting anymore and you're not pushing as much weight as you want to, those are going to be the most stimulating reps. So stimulating reps over just kind of stimulating reps. I'm going to take the stimulating reps. So the biggest misconception here is that you're going to get hurt. You're not going to get hurt as long as you work within the range of motion, dropping the weight, and you work up to your working set that you did before with your poor range of motion. But now with full range of motion, you're going to get even more stimulating reps, stimulating gains, more muscle hypertrophy, more strength gains. What's up, guys? I hope you enjoyed the video. I provided value. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys found it helpful within the video about the misconceptions. If you found any advice in between to what I said, there's my dog. She's chilling. So I hope you guys learned something. People who are looking and see misconceptions, and hopefully it's cleared up now. And I just hope I provided value for you guys. Leave a comment in the description. If you have a question, comment, video idea, whatever, I will answer you, and I will answer you to the best of my capabilities and to my knowledge. I will try. So there's the dog. Good night, guys.